What we're going to talk about today is on page 65. And here you are in New Year's. And what are you going to do? You know what a lot of people are going to do tonight? They're going to make a resolution. Don't do it. Whatever you do, because what you're going to do is you're going to get yourself consumed in guilt. You know why? Because you're not going to live up to it. So just forget about it. Just forget about it. Because people say, what I'm going to do next year, and then you're not going to do it, and you're going to say, oh, you know, I can never make anything come out. Just forget it. But what is in the Bible, and what we're looking at here, see, we've gone through a lot of stuff with Joseph and a lot of stuff with Abraham and all these people. Then you get up to a point which is very mundane, and I look at it, and all these rules and regulations. I said, the heck with it. I'll go on to the next juicy part. And then something inside of me said, stop. You can't take these things that look silly and mundane and just skip over them and say, well, you know, they don't mean anything. What are they there for? And there's a reason for all of these things. Rules and regulations are great. See? When you understand, this basically is where this came from in Scriptures. What you have here is you have a set of regulations to guide the way society lives. How do people live? And you want people to obey these rules and these regulations. But the way you get them to do it that many years ago was you tell them God wrote this. Now you scare the pants off of them, and you can do anything you want. Once you tell them that God wrote it, you can kill people that violate them. Because you'll say it's the will of God. That's what all this stuff is. This is the will of God. You're not supposed to do that. You know, you hit your father in the nose, you've got to die. God said so, and nobody questions it. And we've showed you a lot of things. We've showed you in here where Moses actually took part in pedophilia. Moses actually took part in child abuse and all kinds of horrible things. But nobody, you can't, it's all right, because it's the will of God, because it said God told him to do it. Right. So you justify that. And that's the way, basically, they got to the point of controlling people. When you get anything in a Bible, you've got to then look above and beyond, and you've got to look at the words and say, what can this mean in a metaphysical way? What can this mean in a mystical way? What can this mean in a spiritual way? The Bible is filled with the Old Testament of killing animals. Sacrifice an animal. Kill the animal. I mean, it's loaded with it. Look, go to page 86. And on page 86, let me show you something. On page 86, you'll come to Leviticus chapter 1. And I'll show you why, what I'm trying to do for you now, because I'm going to come against the literal teachings in the Bible, and I don't believe that you or I or anybody else has a right to do that unless you document the fact that the Bible says you should do that. Then you and I can go, we can have at this thing and look and see what these things really mean and find out that they're talking about the wars that are going on inside of our head and make some sense out of it. Look at Leviticus chapter 1, verse 3 on page 86. In Leviticus chapter 1, verse 3, it says, if his offering be a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. So there you have an animal out of the herd that's going to be sacrificed. Okay? Now, go to right where you are, Leviticus chapter 1, verse 10. If his offering be of the flocks, sheep. There you got cattle, or you got sheep. And it goes into great, you know, stipulations as to what type of animal and how you kill the animal and so forth and so on. And go to page 121. On page 121, in Numbers chapter 6, look at verse 17. Numbers chapter 6, look at verse 17. And he shall offer the ram for a sacrifice. I'm not going to get into what all this means right now. I think many of you see it and you understand right away what it really means. But here you have a herd of cattle, you have sheep, you have rams. I mean, they spent the whole beginning part of the Bible killing animals to please God. That's what this was for. And in some religions, even in this country, they still do it. They're still killing goats and chickens and all of this kind of stuff. They still do it. But there's a problem when you violate the Bible, and this is the problem with fundamentalism, when you take all of this stuff literally. In fact, I don't say take any of it literally. There's not a thing in the Bible that I take literally. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This guy wrote me about, He said, you know, you're saying King James was a homosexual. That has nothing to do with it. King David was a rotten guy, but he was in the Bible. I wrote him back. There's one big difference. I said, King James existed. King David didn't. There never was a King David. There never was a King Solomon. It's all part of the myth. The word Solomon is the sun, is the myth of the sun. Sol Invictus, which is the sun. Om, which is the measurement of the electrical energy of the sun. And On is the name of the city of the sun god near Memphis, Egypt. That's the word of the sun. There was no such people. You can go into Egyptian lore, thousands and thousands, and not only you can get documentation that these people existed, you can find King Tut's tomb and all of this stuff. These people nothing. Only in the Bible. They never existed. Right? So here then, you're taking literally the killing of animals and say, well, what you're picturing is that they took all of these animals and killed them. But, see the big but here? There's a but. And the but is on page 483. And but on page 483 is in Psalm chapter 40. And look what it says in Psalm chapter 40. It says in Psalm chapter 40, verse 6, sacrifice and offering you did not desire. My ears have you opened. Burnt offering and sin offering have you not required. Here you've killed everything in sight. And it says here in the book of Psalms, this was a mistake. But what did he say? My ears have you opened. I finally understand what you're talking about. This is what we're trying to do. I have sent to every fundamentalist church, so far about 60 churches, about Pegasus and the second coming. And I'm sure, and so I was talking to Carrie yesterday, all of these churches I've sent this information about Pegasus, and obviously they say, well, this is from this wacko, down in the basement, this New Age cult guy, and but when it happens, they'll remember where they heard it. Believe me, they'll remember where they heard it. Okay? Now, here you see that it says, sin offering, burnt offering, you did not. Look. Go to page 4, you're on page 483. Go to page 489. Look at Psalm chapter 51. Psalm chapter 51. And look at verse 16. And what does it say? You desire not sacrifice, else I would give it. You don't delight in burnt offerings. But that's all they did. They killed animals and they put them on the fire. And they said it was a sweet smell to God. And if there was any God up there, he was thrown up. He said, what are these people are crazy? Well, what is the burnt? Does anybody here know what the burnt offering is? I'll tell you what the burnt offering is. The burnt offering is when the sun touches Aries the ram. The ram is sacrificed when it is consumed by the sun. And what happens when that takes place? Springtime comes. Passover. You pass over from the winter. That's what it's all about. It's all astrological. All astrological. But these people running around killing animals. You have people to this day killing animals. You have people who read the Bible, think that that's, but it says right in the Bible. Look, go to page 579. And you're in the book of Isaiah. And look what it says in the book of Isaiah. It says in the book of Isaiah, in Isaiah chapter 1, look at verse 11. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices? What is God saying? What's the purpose of this? What are you killing a goat for? For what? I'm not mad at the goat. I'm mad at you. It's not the goat that's a fakakta. You're the fakakta. I'm not mad at the ram. I'm not mad at the bull. I'm mad at you. Why are you killing these things? To what purpose? And so here's God saying, what's the purpose of this? Well, the guy said, well, I thought you wrote the book. Well, I didn't write that. See? And look at what it says in verse 12. When you come, who required this? Who told you to do this? Who told you when you were going through religion? Who told you to get baptized? Who told you to do that? Who told you to get confronted? Who told you to go to confession? Who told you to sing these songs? Who told you how to go to church? Who told you to read the Bible? Who told you to all this stuff? It's not in here. Not in here. Who made it up? And look what it says in verse 13. Don't bring any more of these vain oblations to me. It's an abomination. And here they are, they got butcher shops and churches, and it says in verse 15, look, when you spread forth your hands, I'm going to hide my eyes from you because I'm not going to hear you because your hands are full of blood. See? You know what? I'll bet you've gone to church. Most of you people have gone to church for all of your life, and I'll bet you nobody even ever told you that it's a snow job. What's sacrificing the animal mean? It means meditating. And sacrificing the animal where? In a pig pen? No, the pig pen's in here. Right in here. Sacrificing the bull, which is your ego. Sacrificing the ass, which is your stubborn nature. Sacrificing all of the things that whirl around inside of our heads. That's what it means. And the premier sacrifice is the burnt offering of Aries the ram, which takes place in the spring. This is myth. It is myth. It astounds me as I walk around. I sat and watched people on television. Cathedrals all over the world were packed with people. Packed with people. Thinking about this man who was born in a manger. Thinking about this woman who was a virgin who gave birth. How can grown, intellectual people who've been to college, been to universities, sit there and say the virgin had a baby? Virgins don't have babies. You do know that. Look, the first creatures, believe me, that Bible you've got in your hand is Greek myth. The first creatures in Greek myth were Uranus, spelled in Greek O-U-R-A-N-O-S. Uranus, which is Father Heaven. Also the Son. Jesus in the Bible, in the original Greek text, says the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And if you read it in Greek, it says the kingdom of Uranus is at hand. And it was Uranus and Gaia, Mother Earth. Those were the first. And also existing at this time in the Greek myth were the Cyclops, the single eye, and the Titans. Power. And they ran around in the earth, the Cyclops and the Titans and the power. And Uranus hated much of the things that were going on, other than cast many of the things into the darkness, because it was filled with sin. And so Uranus said, I can't stand all of this stuff. I'm disgusted that I made all of this stuff. Gaia, the earth, look what you've got running all over you. I've thrown all of this stuff away. Go to page 5 in the Bible. Let me show you something. On page 5 of the Bible, what does it say? In Genesis chapter 6. Look at verse 6. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Where'd they get that from? You see what I'm telling you? And what was this that we're talking about, Uranus and Gaia? The earth is a planet. Uranus is a planet. We're talking about stars. We're talking about astrology. So Uranus allowed Cyclops and Titans to roam the earth. Energy and power in the single eye, and they were allowed to roam the earth. But he had other children who revolted. In particular, there was one who you're going to see tonight. One of the children who revolted against Uranus, you're going to see tonight. Cronus, also spelled with a K, whose father, Time, comes out with a long beard and a sickle in his hand. You'll see him tonight. He revolted against Uranus. Cronus did. And Cronus is Saturn. And Saturn in the Bible is Satan. This is what people tell you about the fear and afraid of Satan. They don't have the slightest idea they're talking about a planet. Saturn is Satan. And Cronus took that sickle and castrated Uranus. And when he castrated Uranus, the blood flowed from Uranus, and out of the blood sprang monsters, and Enrice. And Enrice means fury. Fury. atomic wars, pestilence, violence, war, struggles, fury all over the earth because of the fact of the blood that flowed out of Uranus. And these monsters and these thoughts were they were called those who walk in darkness. And as long as there was sin and horror in the world, the in-race, fury, hate, war would be there. And they are today. Kronos, as I said, is Saturn. In the Bible, you read of it as Satan, and he was the Lord of the universe. And Kronos, who was then the Lord of the universe when he overthrew Uranus, had a sister who he was married to, and her name was Rhea. Rhea. And Rhea was having children. She was a queen. She gave birth to children. And Kronos learned, listen, that one of the children was destined to overthrow his kingdom. So he would kill all the children. Did you ever hear that story? He would kill all the children. He would swallow each of the children as they were born. That's where the story of King Kansa, who killed all the children when Hare Krishna was born, and that's where the story of King Herod, who killed all the children when Jesus was born, comes from astrology. And he would swallow the children. But when Rhea gave birth to the sun god, she hid the sun god from Kronos. And the sun god, the savior of the world, was born, and his name was Zeus. And so what Rhea did, and incidentally, so that you know, Kronos is Saturn, Zeus is Jupiter. Okay? What Rhea did, she took a stone, and listen to this, she wrapped the stone in swaddling clothes and gave it to Kronos, and he swallowed. Now, Zeus was then carried off to Crete to escape the fury of Kronos. Do you remember? If you look at Matthew, look at page 778, Matthew chapter 2. Matthew chapter 2, look at verse 14. Joseph, when he arose, took the young child and his mother by night and departed unto Egypt. What's that story from? It's because Zeus was taken to Crete to escape Kronos, who was out to kill all the children. Jesus was taken to Egypt to escape Herod, who was out to kill all the children. Krishna was taken across the ice floe to escape Kansa. Don't you understand? Can you tell any of your friends this? Can you tell anybody? Is anybody willing to listen? Is anybody willing to understand where this stuff comes from? And can you tell them that every single bit of this stuff that they read about in the Bible that is holy to them, that is the Word of God, is astrology? Because it is. Later, Zeus returned in his strength, and Venus, love, came out of the depths of the ocean, which is God's truth, and called upon the Cyclops, the single eye, and they overthrew Kronos and cast Kronos out of heaven into the depths of the fiery pit. Go to page 1009. 1009. Look at Revelation chapter 12. And look at verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. That's Saturn. That's Kronos. That's the mythology I'm telling you about. Where'd it come from? And Zeus made Kronos throw up the 5 kids that he swallowed. The 5 were returned. Zeus was the 6th. And that which was the eternal God was the 7th. In 180 AD, the priests of Delphi anointed the stone that Kronos had swallowed. In Matthew 21:42, Jesus talks about the stone that the builders rejected. It was that stone that deceived Satan that allowed God to live in the hearts of all. And it is that stone in you, which is the pineal stone, which deceives the left side, which allows God, Zeus, Jesus, call it whatever you want, to live in you and bring you to the fulfillment of life. That's where all this stuff came from. And remember, every one of these characters are a planet. And that's where it all came from. So it's interesting. If we can just stay with me for a couple of minutes, and I never even got to this, but I just want to share with you one thing, and then I'll show you how you look at these things, and then you can go off to get ready for this evening. Go to page 65, and I promise you, because it's late, I'll do this quickly. But I didn't even do this yet. I'll just do a little bit. Exodus chapter 21. In Exodus chapter 21, chapter 22, in chapter 23, we have a myriad of rules and regulations. Rules and regulations that have a social implication, rules and regulation also that are deeply mystical, and what we are about to get in for just a few moments is extremely occult. Don't be frightened, it just means it's hidden. Another thing, when you see your friends, tell them that. Because as soon as you say something occult, they think of Ouija boards and ladies on the boardwalk reading cards and everything. It just means it's hidden. Jesus taught in the occult. The whole thing was occult. Anyhow, look what it says in Exodus chapter 21. And look, I'll show you how you break this down and how it goes, and then you go. Exodus chapter 21 and verse 1 to 6. Look at verse 2. If you buy a Hebrew servant. If you buy a Hebrew servant. And the first thing, let's define the word Hebrew. It comes from, the root of the word is all bar. Okay? And all bar means Passover. And it also means the man from the region beyond. Did you ever hear that song we sang Christmas Eve? Your friend is close by your side and speaks in far ancient tongue. The man from the region beyond, which means at the right side. If you buy this. Now, the Hebrew servant is the inner man from the region beyond. It's extremely occult, extremely hidden. And you buy that servant by paying your 10%, which is tithing the left side in your meditation. Now, who's the ultimate Hebrew servant? The one who gives his life. The one that gives his life so that we might rise. That which is the Christ within you. That which is the Son within you. So the Hebrew servant is the Christ. The Hebrew servant is the energy, the Son energy, the God energy within you, the solar plexus energy. Now look what it says in verse 3. If he came in by himself, in verse 2, if you buy that Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free. Do you know what it means? The 6th chakra. But in the 7th, you should go out free. And that's what it's talking about. So you're talking about the man from the region beyond. And once you touch that man, once you open that energy, once that Christ starts to rise within you, up through the 1st chakra, up through the 2nd, up through the 3rd, up through the 4th, and when you hit that 7th chakra, that Sabbath chakra, then you come up to freedom. It says in verse 3, if you go in by yourself, you'll go out by yourself. If you're married, the wife shall go out with you. What the heck is that? Do you see anything there? Some of you will feel no physical, emotional, or spiritual experience in your meditation because you're single, and that's fine. And I don't mean you're single, you're not married. I'm talking about that's the way you are. You're not emotional. You don't You just do it. You go in by yourself, you come out by yourself. But there are others who will experience an emotional or physical feelings of this Kundalini. You're more demonstrative. You're more connected emotionally and spiritually. And being connected emotionally and spiritually, you're married to the emotions. And so when you come out of meditation, your wife will come out with you. Now in Exodus 21:4, it says, if his master has given him a wife and she's borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her masters. If the master, which is the God mind, okay, that's the God mind. If the master has given him a wife, that's you. That is spiritual awareness. Okay? That is spiritual awareness. And she bears you sons or daughters. That's spiritual desire. Okay? It says then, this is important in Exodus 21:4, the wife, meaning your spirit, and the children, the spiritual desires, belong to who? To God. They have no place. See, this is where religion makes such a mistake. You cannot take spirit and divine mind into the church. When you are into a church and you are exercising things, if you fall on the floor, you talk in tongues, you do all of these different things, you are exercising your emotions. Because spirit does none of that. Spirit is out here where you can't write. Spirit is out here where you can't see. Spirit is this magnificence that says from the cosmos through the gates of Orion, beep, 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 beep. And all it asks you to do is turn your antenna in your meditation. Did you ever see E.T.? Do you remember when E.T. would place his finger and they would touch and the light would come on? That beep, beep that's coming down into your right side is God's finger. And he's looking for you to turn in that inner finger of yours to touch so the light can come on. All of these things in these movies and so forth are great mythologies. They're great myths. So you cannot take this. It says in Exodus 21:4, you shall go out by yourself. You cannot go about your business and be consumed in spirit and divine mind. Your spirit and divine mind is to receive from God. I cannot tell you, I've been on my knees, I don't know how many times begging you, because what? Pegasus is here. The white horse is here. The Christ is returned on his white horse. Astronomers have seen the white horse. Listen folks, there was only one sun star, which is the Christ, in the history of the world. The sun that the earth circles, the sun star, which Christ represents. The second sun star, the second coming of the sun star, the second coming of the Christ was prophesied in Revelation to be on the white horse. They found it for the first time in the history of the world. Astronomers have seen the sun star in Pegasus right at the bridle of the horse. And I'm begging you to follow and obey Jesus Christ and practice the single eye and enter in and two and two. This is it. They are sitting in churches all over the world today and haven't a clue that this has occurred. And so here then it says, look, in Exodus 21:5, if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, God. I love my wife, my spirit. I love my children, my divine spirit. I will not go out free. In other words, I will stay. I will discipline myself to this meditation. I will stay. You're making a commitment to that? No, you're not. How do I know? Because when the meditation time comes, the chairs are empty. The chairs have a commitment. The chairs have promised. I don't know, maybe there's angels sitting in the chair. I don't know. It's okay. No guilt. No guilt. I'm not here to make people guilty. I'm just here to save your rear end. Because it's close now. It isn't fooling time anymore. It's not reading the Bible time anymore. It's not going to church studying time anymore. It's the time when the astronomers and the scientists have seen the white horse. They have seen the second coming of the sun star at Pegasus. It's time for you to wake up and say, hey, this is serious now. It's here. It's arrived. Now, if you commit yourself to this, then what happens? If you say yes, in verse 6, 21:6, his master God shall bring him unto the judges, that means to the judgment of divine consciousness, and bring him to the door or to the doorpost. Now, real quick, and I'm not going to say, real quick, go to page 296, and this is where the door is. Okay? 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 8. This is the construction of the temple. You there? Page, whatever I said it was? 296, you there? Page 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 8. The door for the middle chamber, was in the right side of the house. Where are you going to be brought to? If you make this commitment, you'll be brought to the door at the right hemisphere of the brain. If you make a commitment, you'll be brought to the door at the right hemisphere of the brain. Okay? Now what's going to happen? At the door of the right hemisphere of the brain, the door post to the right side. Go back to Exodus 21:6. Okay? And his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Hear anything? See anything? Feel anything? His master shall bore his ear through. So they're going to bring you to the door at the right side, to the right hemisphere of the brain. They're going to cut a hole in your ear, or your ear is going to be circumcised. And you know what's going to happen when your ear is circumcised? You're not going to hear that stuff out there anymore. You're not going to be able to hear it. You're going to listen to it and say, my God, what are they saying? You know that many of you have had your ears circumcised, you don't even know it. Turn on television sometime and watch them when they're talking. You say, my God. Because your ears been circumcised. The hole's been cut in your ear. Go to page 628, real quick. Page 628, book of Jeremiah. I don't make this stuff up. You say, oh, this guy, where's getting this crap? I don't make anything up. And if you remember, and as long as you've been coming here, every time I've ever shot my mouth off about anything, I've showed you the scripture that documents it. You know that. And that's been a lot of years that we've done this. I don't say things, and even with this classroom thing, I was a little bit concerned about that's going to be fine. But the point is, documentation of everything. Okay? So they cut a hole in his ear. Look at Jeremiah. You there? Chapter 6. Look at verse 10. What does God say? To whom shall I speak and give warning that they may hear? Behold, their ear is uncircumcised, and they cannot hear. Behold, the word is a reproach unto them, and they have no delight in it. You know those people that are in Bible studies, reading the Bible literally, their ears uncircumcised. They haven't the slightest idea what they're reading. They haven't the slightest idea. They know nothing. They know nothing that Satan is Saturn. They haven't any idea. Slightest idea. They have no idea that Jesus is the sun star, the sun god. No idea. They have no idea that Uranus has returned and is the second coming and the white horse. No idea. No idea. But they're singing songs, Amazing Grace, and they're singing all of these songs and they're doing all of this stuff. But they haven't any idea. They say, well, they're trying. How would you like to have a guy that doesn't know how to do surgery try to take your appendix out? You know, didn't work, but he tried. Did the best he could. Hell, he had good intentions. He didn't want the guy to die. You've got a doctor here. He's in the emergency room doing all these things in the hospital. I just like to have some guy come in, works in a shoe store. Take that, well, we're going to relieve you tonight, Doc. You can go on. Take the night off. The guy in the shoe store. They're going to say, 13 people died last night, Doc. Yeah, but the guy tried. He was really a nice guy. Really good intentions. They weren't trying to hurt anybody. He was really trying to help. He didn't know you weren't supposed to give that stuff. So if you're committed to this inner way, then your ear must be circumcised, and you will not hear the outer, but you'll fill to overflowing with the truth that pours from God. Okay? Now, one last thing, and you've been very patient, but this is the end of the year, and I got to get my last licks in. Everybody, the other night, Ethel and Albert came over, and they were watching the Key West tape, and they saw the two French sailors on Duval Street saying, "Bonjour, Micheline! Bonjour, Micheline!" So you guys see it. Did you see it? Bonjour. And they were good-looking young French sailors, too. I don't know who they were, but I said, okay, real quick. Look at Exodus. Go back to Exodus for just a minute. I know you want to keep it, but I just want to tell you one last thing, and then Off we go. Exodus chapter 21. Okay, verse. I want to show you rules and regulations. I want to show you rules and regulations. How this is great, and I just want to get this out and we're done. Exodus chapter 21 and verse 12. Okay, look at verse 13. If a man lies not in wait, but God delivers him into his hand, then I will appoint you a place where you can flee. In other words, don't you kill anybody. God will bring the person to you so that you can kill him. And then, after you wipe this guy out, God will give you a place to hide. Rome. No. Hey, why you talk? Yeah. My name is Vito Sarconi. Whatever. Listen, Exodus chapter 21, 30. Okay? What is that talking about? You're going to get ambushed. Don't kill anybody. See, how many people can you think of that you really don't like? Now, God's going to bring them to you. You kill them, bump them off, and he'll give you a place to hide out. Does that make sense? Not a whole lot. Look what it says. This is an amazing biblical precept. You don't ambush the other person. God delivers the other person into your hand, and then God will find you a place to hide. The man that you kill is the man who lives downstairs, the left side, the lower mind. God delivers the thoughts. God delivers the guilt. God delivers the fear. God delivers the hate. God delivers all of that, all of the sickness, all of those things he delivers into your hand, and then he gives you a beautiful place on the right side to hide. The holy place, the place separate and set apart. God is delivering the troublemaker into your hands. You are to kill the troublemaker by separating from thought, and then you hide in the safe haven of meditation at the right side in the holy place. And that's what it's about. So when you look at these rules and you look at these regulations, and see, this was so dangerous when you read the Bible literally, and you rise above this metaphysically, and you understand what's being said. And believe me, these people of the East wrote in great symbols and went out of their way to deceive, out of their way because they didn't want the profane understanding this. The only one, you know why? Because they didn't want people using this for their own gain, and they didn't want people using this for their own power. They didn't want people using this for their own mind. And so what they did, they set people as Jesus did. Those who would meditate, first of all, would wash away the ego, wash away the need. And everybody we've had people come in here that wanted to do this for a buck. We've had people here that wanted to do this for power. But you know what? God picks them up, off they go. Nobody comes in here and does anything for a buck. Nobody does anything to make any money out of this. Nobody ever asks you for a dime. This is totally people who are individuals finding their pathway. And the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful part is, once that ego of all of us is drained away, once that need or desire to have something for ourselves is drained away, then the door is opened and the gifts are given.